doesn't want to drink.
He does.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You do.
I don't.
You don't.
I do.
You don't.
I do.
You don't.
Listen, when I say I do, that means I do.
What if Roger Rabbit isn't just a cartoon in danger, but a symbol of everything the real world keeps trying to erase? Because Who Framed Roger Rabbit isn't chaos. It isn't a mad experiment in mixing cartoons with detectives. It's a noir tragedy wearing a smile. A story about what happens when joy becomes disposable the moment it stops being profitable. On the surface, the film tells a simple mystery. A washed-up private eye, Eddie Valiant, is hired to prove that Roger Rabbit didn't cheat on his wife. A powerful businessman turns up dead. Roger is framed. A cartoon is hunted in a human world that's already decided he's guilty. But underneath the slapstick and the gags is something colder. A world where creativity is tolerated only as long as it behaves. Where innocence is cute until it becomes inconvenient. Where power doesn't need to be cruel in public because it erases quietly. Eddie Valiant doesn't hate toons because he's bitter. He hates them because he's broken. His brother was killed by one, or at least that's what he believes. What he really lost wasn't just a partner, but his faith in laughter. So Eddie walks through the film like a man allergic to joy, surrounded by it but unable to touch it. A detective in a city that runs on smiles he can't trust anymore. Roger Rabbit stands on the other end of that spectrum. He's loud, he's clumsy, he's emotional. But he isn't stupid. He's morally pure in a world that's learned how to fake morality. Roger doesn't lie. He doesn't scheme. He doesn't play the game. And that's why he becomes the perfect suspect. Because in a corrupt system, innocence looks suspicious. And then there's Jessica Rabbit, the line everyone remembers. I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way. For a lot of people, she was every boy's first love. And the film knows exactly what it's doing with that. Jessica looks like temptation, but she's written like loyalty. She's framed as a distraction, treated like a threat, sexualized by the world around her, yet she's the most faithful character in the story. While the men assume she's guilty just for existing, she spends the entire film protecting the one person no one else will defend. Not because she has to, because she chooses to. Jessica is the film's sharpest critique of perception. She's proof that power doesn't just erase with violence. Sometimes it erases with assumptions, with labels, with the lie that appearance equals intention. Toontown feels like fantasy, bright colors, elastic physics, endless laughter, but it isn't escape. It's a mirror of Hollywood itself, a place built on creativity, run by contracts, controlled by people who never have to perform. The toons are stars, but they're also labor. They generate profit, culture, and nostalgia, and yet they're disposable the moment the market shifts. Then there's Judge Doom. Tall, calm, soft-spoken. The face of order, he doesn't yell, he doesn't laugh. He just enforces. And when his mask finally falls, when he reveals himself not just as a villain, but as a toon who hates toons, the message lands like a verdict. The worst monsters don't look like chaos, they look like rules. Doom isn't evil because he's mad. He's evil because he believes in systems, in structure, in cleanliness, in a world where anything unpredictable gets erased. And that's why the dip is the most terrifying image in the film. Not because it melts cartoons, but because it turns erasure into procedure. The dip isn't murder, it's sanitation. It's the system saying this doesn't belong anymore, and then washing it away so no one has to feel guilty. Eddie's hatred of toons isn't prejudice, it's trauma misdirected. He blames laughter for his brother's death because grief needs a target. And the film lets him live in that bitterness until the truth finally forces him to face it. Roger's innocence isn't naivete, it's resistance. He survives because he refuses to become what the world expects him to be. Cynical, hardened, self-protective. He stays open in a city that weaponizes cleverness, and that's why he scares people. Because nothing threatens power like someone who won't play by its rules. The reveal of Judge Doom isn't just a twist, it's the thesis. That control doesn't come from force. It comes from authority that pretends to be necessary. From systems that convince everyone they're keeping things safe, while quietly deciding who deserves to exist. Visually, the film tells this story even when the dialogue doesn't. Noir shadows wrap around bright cartoon bodies, hard light cuts through soft colors. Every frame feels like two worlds colliding, not just technically, but morally. The joy of animation crashes into the severity of detective fiction, and what you get isn't harmony, it's tension. A reminder that wonder doesn't survive easily in adult systems, and the fact that it works at all feels like a miracle. In 1988, this film shouldn't have existed. Disney and Warner Bros. Sharing characters was unthinkable. Mickey and Bugs on the same screen was corporate blasphemy. The technical challenge of making animated characters physically interact with real actors was a gamble that could have ended careers. The film was expensive, complicated, risky, and darker than any studio expected a family movie to be, which makes its existence ironic. A film about creative worlds colliding was born from creative worlds finally agreeing to share power. For a brief moment, competition stepped aside and something impossible got made. And that moment didn't just change animation. It changed Hollywood's understanding of what genre could be, what tone could be, what a children's film was allowed to say without asking permission. Because Who Framed Roger Rabbit refuses to talk down to its audience. It shows death, corruption, fear, greed, and then lets a cartoon rabbit stand in the middle of it and survive anyway. That's where the real story lives. This film is about who controls the narrative, who gets to decide what matters, what stays, what gets erased. Toontown isn't just a fantasy land. It's a workforce built on smiles. Hollywood has always loved creativity and feared creators. It celebrates the magic while tightening the contracts. It sells nostalgia while burying the people who made it possible. And nostalgia itself becomes part of the trap. We look back at Toontown and feel comfort, warmth, safety. But the film reminds us that behind every comforting memory is a system that decided what was worth remembering and what wasn't. Judge Doom doesn't want to kill toons because he hates fun. He wants to replace them with highways, with progress, with something more profitable. The future doesn't need laughter, he thinks. It needs efficiency, and that fear runs deeper than the plot. It's the fear of the new replacing the old, the fear of art becoming obsolete, the fear that joy has an expiration date. Eddie Valiant's arc isn't about solving a case. It's about learning to laugh again without feeling guilty, about realizing that grief doesn't give you the right to erase what still brings others life. When he finally uses laughter to defeat Doom, it isn't a gag, it's a confession. A man admitting that joy didn't kill his brother, silence did. And Roger Rabbit, he isn't just funny, he's tragic. A character built to make others laugh, living in a world that punishes him for being exactly that. A hero whose power is not strength but sincerity. In a city ruled by schemes, he survives by refusing to scheme back. That's the real heart of the film. Innocence doesn't survive by hiding. It survives by refusing to disappear. Who Framed Roger Rabbit isn't about a crime. It's about control. About how power disguises itself as order. About how systems erase what they once celebrated. About how laughter becomes dangerous the moment it stops being useful. And maybe that's why the film still feels unsettling. Because it isn't really about toons. It's about us. About every creative voice that gets celebrated, then replaced. Every joyful thing that becomes a product, then a problem. So the next time you watch Roger running from shadows in a city that never wanted him safe, ask yourself what the film is really saying. Is Roger Rabbit just funny? Or is he one of the most tragic heroes animation ever created? If this story changed the way you see the film, share your thoughts in the comments. Leave a like if it made you rethink something you thought you already understood, and subscribe for more journeys through stories, hiding deeper truths. Because sometimes the loudest laughter is the bravest act of resistance. Until next time, keep looking past the surface.